Hey everyone, this is Charles, your hobby hero, and today we're going to talk about Pokemon. And not just any Pokemon, but base set Pokemon. As most of you already know, recent high dollar purchases by several high profile celebrities has Pokemon back in the spotlight and hotter than ever. Nostalgic collectors are searching storage units, closets, and even their kids' collections in an attempt to recapture their nostalgia. Nostalgia that is attached to a pretty high price tag, I might add. Which brings us to my collection. Now, this is a completed set of the very first set of Pokemon known as Base Set. Now, Base Set was printed a few times, and this particular printing is known as the Shadowless printing, which we'll cover here shortly. Now, this set was assembled by a 15-year-old version of myself through trading and opening packs, and as you can kind of see, some of the sun fading has happened to the sleeves over the years. This was completed all the way back in 1999 and has stayed in this collector's case pretty much ever since. Now, ungraded and in this condition, this particular set would sell somewhere between $10,000 to $12,000, which is no small sum of money. But graded by a professional grading company in gem mint condition, and these cards can sell for over $100,000. Today we're going to take a look at these cards, take them out of their 20-year time capsule, and see what kind of condition they are in, and some of the prices that these cards are going for these days. Alright guys, we're going to start at the very beginning and work our way through the set in order. We're going to really be looking at the four major categories that the professional grading companies are looking for when they're grading these cards, which is the surface of the card, the edges of the card, the corners of the card, and the centering of the card. We're going to spend most of our time looking at the holos in the set because that is where most of the value is in the set with a few exceptions, and we'll look at those as we get to them. Now we're going to start right out the gates here with Mr. Alakazam, number 1 of 102. Now Alakazam is my favorite Pokemon. If you were lucky enough to catch Abra and get him evolved Alakazam early in the Game Boy games, his psychic attack was extremely devastating. Now, when I was talking about Shadowless set earlier, you may notice that this border over here, if you're familiar with the other Wizards of the Coast sets, normally has a shadow. The very first edition print run of Base Set and the first printing of the Unlimited set were the only sets to not have that shadow, which makes them even more rare than their counterparts later on. Now, when we were talking about the surface of the card, that's going to be in reference to the flat surface on the front and the flat surface on the backs of the card. The edges and the corners are looking at wear and play on those surfaces. And when we talk about the centering, it's going to be kind of the cut and placement of the card inside of it. So you want that card to be as perfectly centered from top to bottom and left to right as you can. Get him out of his sleeve here. And try to get the light in that foil there. As you can see, there's a little scuffing, it looks like, in the foil down here. The edges look good on the front. There's a little, can't see it real well, a little blue speck right there at the top. I'm not sure what that is from. Corners and edges look good on the front. They're hard to tell on the front though, so you usually get a better idea on the back. Back looks pretty good. A little bit of white right there with a little bit of white on that corner there. So all in all, very good condition on the Alakazam. Now these professional grading companies grade on a scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest, and especially on these old cards, 10s are extremely hard to get. So for the purposes of this video, I've looked at prices, completed prices on these at a 9 for these completed listings, and Alakazam would be about $1,500 at a 9 grade from those companies. Next, and another crowd favorite, would be Blastoise. Now if you can see, the centering from the top to bottom is definitely off on this individual. You see it's thicker at the bottom than it is at the top. So he'll definitely get docked on that. The foiling on this one looks pretty clean. Edges, no real wear, sign of wear that you can see. Let's check out the back here. A little few white specks up here. It was very common on this era of cards. Just said, makes them very difficult to get those 10 grades. It's a little hard to see and get the light just right. There's just the tiniest little crease right there almost too. So that would definitely hurt the overall grade of this individual. A little bit of whitening on that corner there. All in all, minus that little crease, pretty good condition card. That'll generally limit how high those can get. But again, if this were to grade at a 9, Blastoise right now is going for about $5,500 at a PSA 9. All right, the next one is Chansey. Chansey is another one that's pretty highly sought after in high conditions. A lot of that comes because it's very difficult to keep him unscuffed, it seems like, with the few of them that out there that have graded in perfect condition. As you can see, this one, you can get the light right on it. You can see some scuffing right here in the foil. So again, would keep it from grading perfectly on it. Again, a little off center, it looks like, top to bottom. Edges look mostly clean on the front. A little bit of white in the corner. A little bit of white in that corner. And a little bit up here in the top. So again, good condition card, would not get a perfect grade. But even at a 9, Chansey here grades at about $3,800. All right, for those of you who know what's coming next, this is the one that everyone is after and tearing their houses up for currently. And that is Charizard himself. Now, this guy has been the most popular card in this set since the very first day that this card was printed. I remember trying to hunt these things down as a small child, and I found a very good condition one here. Centering on this one is almost perfect on the front here. I said I don't see it being off. I don't see really anything in the foiling there either. Check out the back on this guy. Okay, now the back is off center. You can see the top is definitely thicker than the bottom, and it looks like it's thicker left to right as well. There's a very small nick here at the bottom. Edges are pretty clean. There's a little bit of whitening there, but not a ton, and a little white dot on that corner there as well. Very good condition. Now, they are usually more forgiving on the off-centering on the back. So all in all, very strong Charizard there. Charizard grades at a 9 and it's a pretty big range on where he sells at that price. One of the most recent auctions at $21,000. All right, so next will bring us to this little guy, Clefairy. Fairly small little guy, not a real popular one here. Kind of a boring foil pattern, honestly, as I'm looking at it here. It doesn't really jump out at you for anything. I remember not being overly excited opening these as kids, but needless to say, still a very old part of the set. Corners look good, maybe a little off-center top to bottom. Back edges look good. Corners look pretty good. Just a little bitty white flick down here. Maybe a little bit of whitening on that corner there. So very strong Clefairy. Now these at a 9 are about $675, so just shy of the 700 mark. So not quite the same level as the first 4 we looked at, but certainly no small amount either. That is going to bring us to one of the most rewarding Pokemon in the game, as long as you can put up with trying to get him evolved. That is Gyarados, who evolves from Magikarp, as you can see up here. Now, this individual card here, it looks like it does have a little bit of scuffing possibly in the foil. The centering, so it might be off just a hair top bottom again. Like I said, very difficult to get these in perfect condition because the printing process was so poor back in the day, which really drives up the premium on those perfect condition cards. Again, the edges on the front look good. Edges on the back, a little bit of a white speck here. Maybe a little bit of a whitening on the corner there. Just some whitening on the edge, and then some on the top edge there as well. Gyarados and a 9, going for about $1,000 right now though. Alright, so here is one of my favorite Pokemon to play in the actual TCG, Hitmonchan. There was a deck that played him and Farfetch'd, which is uncommon, I believe, that we'll see a little bit later on, and just came out fast and early, and really didn't give your opponent this chance to set up these bigger Pokemon like their Blastoises and their Charizards. So as you can see, this one in here, not a ton to look at on the foil pattern, which is surprising that I don't really see any scuffing in it. To have that much empty space in the foil and it to be that clean is very, very rare and hard to get. Centering looks pretty good. It might be just a hair off, left to right and top to bottom. Just a little bit there. Corners and edges look good on the front. Let's see, got a little bit of whitening back here. Surface in the back looks good. Maybe just a hair whitening on the top edges there as well. Hitmonchan at a 9 right now is going for about $700. Alright, now this next one has been the cause of much controversy on the internet. That is the Machamp. Now, a big reason why this one causes so many issues is because of this first edition logo here. So they only ever appeared in first edition. Now, even having said that, there are 2 separate print runs of the first edition. One shadowless, like this one you see here, and one with a shadow. Now, the shadowless one is far more rare than the shadow one is. But there's really not a whole lot to discern the two because of the fact that they both have first edition logos. And if you're not familiar with that shadow and shadowless border, a lot of times there'll be some confusion on which one you actually have. So this particular one on the foil, it looks like there's some print lines, some light play on the front of the card here. Centering looks mostly good, maybe just a hair off. Well, maybe more so on the left to right there. Let's look at the top bottom. But on the back, we've got just a little bit of whitening down here on the edge, a little bit of whitening here on the side, a white dot here, and on the top here. So I hope you guys are getting a good idea on how hard it is to get one of these as a perfect grade. You got to remember these cards are 20, 21 years old, and again, the printing process was not real refined at that point in time, so there are a lot of printing errors that hurt the conditions of these cards. With a Machamp though in mint condition, again, there aren't very many of those shadowless mint condition ones, so there's not a whole lot of data out there, but one is recently sold for about $1,800. And that is going to bring us to the electric Pokemon Magneton. So we've got Magneton here. Again, a lot of empty space in the background, which again usually makes it difficult to have a clean surface on the foiling, but that one does look pretty good. Centering is really hard to tell on these electric Pokemon because it blends in a lot of the areas, so it does make it difficult to see how or if it is off center. It looks pretty good on the centering there. On the back side, we've got a little bit of wear on that corner. Not a whole lot else. Maybe a little white spot on this corner here too, but not a whole lot on there. It's pretty clean. Maybe a little spot there on the edge there too. But overall, pretty clean Magneton. Magneton at a 9 is about $500 on that one as well. All right, now here's another one's crowd favorite rather. Psychic Pokemon Mewtwo. Now, if you played the games, this was the guy you saved your Master Ball for to try and catch. He was the 151 out of the 150, I do believe. And as you can see, the foil on this one is very clean on the foiling surface. Centering, maybe a hair off top bottom. And then on the back, again, centering looks like it's a little off left to right on this one. A little white on the edge. Overall, though, pretty clean Mewtwo. Now, Mewtwo's at a 9 are going to be about $1,200 currently. Alright, next up is Nidoking. So this is one of the evolutions. We have Nidoking and Nidoqueen, so it's one of the few Pokemon that evolve into different genders. Again, the foiling on the back, there's not a whole lot in the foiling, so you've got to really check those closely to see if they're scuffed. It looks fairly clean. One of the advantages of some of the less popular holos is they were played with less, so the conditions hold up a little bit better. Edges on this one, maybe just a white speck or two on the edges. Centering looks pretty good. A little whiting on the corners there, and just a hair of whitening on the edges there as well. Pretty good shape on the Nidoking, and again on a 9 on the Nidokings are about $700 right now. This one we have a Ninetales. So the Ninetales, very popular, the fox Pokemon, and a lot of the mythology of a lot of the other characters in that culture, at least anyways. You have a gorgeous foiling pattern in the back here, though, which is fairly clean. Now, there is a very rare misprint of this particular card where the 80 actually does not show up in the attack. So if you have that one, it's worth even more than the Shadowless or the first edition ones that are on there. So keep an eye out for that one in your collections when you look around. But foiling looks very good. Centering, maybe off just a hair top bottom. Some white specks on the corner up here. Edges look pretty good. A little white speck down here at the bottom. The Ninetales is going about $500 and a Condition 9 card as well. Bring us to Poliwrath. Now, Poliwrath has got another cool foiling pattern in there. You can see the bubbles in the background with the swirls. Clean surface on the front here. Looks like there may be a little bit of a foil bleed through on there. That happened again on some of the prints of these where they didn't even cover the full foil surface with the actual print from the next cardstock, so you can actually see some shimmer of the foil through in some areas. Edges on this particular card, maybe a little bit of whitening up there. A little white in the corner there. Centering looks maybe just a hair off top bottom. But again, on the backs, they're pretty forgiving on the centering. The card faces, you really want to make the clearest image. Poliwrath's about $500 in that Condition 9. Brings us to one that you guys will probably all recognize. Now this is Raichu, who is the evolved form of Pikachu. If you guys watch the show, this is what the little Pikachu refuses to turn into. This particular card is got a lot of empty space in the back, but again, as you can see, this foil is pretty clean on this particular card. Again, another one of those electric type Pokemon. So the centering is really hard to tell on the front. It looks to be good, but like I said, when you start looking at these things under a microscope, you might be able to see a little bit more on those individual cards. Back corners, a little bit of whitening on the edges maybe. We got a little on the corner up here. But overall, a very nice looking Raichu. Now Raichu at a 9 is about $2,000. Alright, getting towards the end of them here. If you've been waiting and looking out for the other starter Pokemon, here he is, Mr. Venusaur himself. Venusaur was one of the first starter Pokemons I played with in the TCG, mostly because he was one of the first ones I got. I later moved on to playing with Blastoise, and I actually never had a deck built with Charizard in the entire time I played the trading card game. I always just kept him in there in his little safe and went from there. But as you can see, the foiling on this one, very clean. I've got front, top to down, centering is a little off. Left to right looks good. On the back, you've got a little bit of whitening up here in the corner. Just a little speck of white on the edge. A little bit over here. Centering on the back, looks pretty good on that in there, but pretty strong Venusaur. Venusaur at a 9 right now is going for about $4,000. And the last of our holos that we're going to be looking at today is one of the legendary birds, Zapdos. Now, Zapdos, I think, is the first legendary bird that you encounter in the games, if I remember correctly. If not, leave it in the comments about which one it is. You can see the foil on this one does look pretty clean again. Maybe a print line there. I can't really tell. I don't know. No, I think it's just the way the light kind of hit it there funny there. But very clean foiling surface. Again, hard to tell on the centering on this particular card due to the electric Pokemon. Edges on this one. Just a little bit of whitening up here. Just a hair of whitening up here. A little bit of whitening down there. Overall, very good looking Zapdos again. A Zapdos in a 9 is about $600. Now that's going to be the holos for the set here. So the rest of these cards we're going to go through, just kind of look at them. One, for nostalgia's sake. But two, there's some high dollar cards in here for it, but we won't be going in quite as much detail as we did on the other ones. Now, of the non-holo rares that are in the set, there aren't really a ton of them that are worth anything where the holos are, but even still, some of these are worth $200 and $300 if they're in good condition. The thing you've got to remember too, without these being holos, they're a little bit easier to get into that tin status because the way the prints were just made, they're just not quite as rough on the non-holos that are in there. So it's Beedrill. Now, Dragonair is one of the few non-holo rares that can kind of compete with the holo rare prices. There's been a couple of these that have finished as high as $500 on their auctions as well, if you can get them in that gem mint perfect condition. And like I said, the holos are a little bit easier, or the non-holos are a little bit easier to get there. And if you guys recognize Dugtrio from That's what Diglett evolves into. Watched a video the other day where they were talking about the fact that they have never seen Dugtrio's body, and there was some scary fan art out there on what that might look like. Electabuzz. I was actually a big fan of Electabuzz whenever he came out, and actually really liked him in the card game until he immediately got reprinted, I think, in Jungle, and then I kind of got tired of opening up a bunch of Electabuzzes. And then we have Electrode. I've never liked Electrode. If Electrode is your favorite Pokemon, please feel free to leave a comment and tell me why, because I don't know that I've ever met anybody that's a big fan of this guy. His big claim to fame is he gets angry and he blows stuff up. And last of the rare Pokemon here is Pidgeotto. Just like in the game where you can find them everywhere, these particular cards are pretty prevalent throughout the TCG. And again, not real special other than the fact that this is just a very old copy of the card. And again, with that shadowless border, makes them a rare commodity to find. So now we are going to get into the uncommons. Now, some of these uncommons are worth more than some of the rares were on those last ones. We'll kind of break down, look through those. The first one here is Arcanine, one of my favorite Pokemon, a very popular one with the crowds that are out there too. Again, this one can even sell for a couple $100, even in the uncommon sets. He later became a rare in some of the later reprints, so it just kind of adds a little extra bit of uniqueness to the uncommon versions, as you can see, of the ones that were printed early on. Alright, and everyone's favorite fire lizard's second form, Charmeleon. Now these are actually worth a pretty penny if they're in good shape here. We'll take this guy out and take a look at his overall condition. If you can tell here, it looks like the centering's pretty good on this particular card, maybe off just a hair top to bottom. Again, surfaces are going to be very easy to score high on these because they are non-hollow. Back edges look pretty clean. There's just a hair of whitening in that back corner, and just a slight trim of whitening up in that top corner as well. Charmeleons in a gem mint condition can go for as high as $500 for an uncommon in the set. Next we've got Dewgong, evolves from Seal. Dragonair's little base evolution, which is Dratini. Again, we were talking about this guy earlier, Farfetch'd, part of my favorite deck when I was playing as a kid, him and Hitmonchan. And then we have Growlithe, who evolved into Arcanine that we saw a little bit earlier, another very popular Pokemon. We're going to get into one of the Ghost-type Pokemon, Haunter. Now, Ghost-type Pokemon are also very popular. Haunter evolves from Ghastly up here, as you can see, and then will later evolve into Gengar. There's another one of the starter Pokemons, another big one, Ivysaur. Check this guy out again here. Centering looks good. Surface looks good. Edges look good. And a little bit of whitening up there. Pretty strong Ivysaur here. These guys, similar to the Charmeleon, can get upwards of about $475 to $500 in gem mint condition. We have Jinx, who is purple already by this print run. If you guys are not aware, he used to be completely black and was changed later on design-wise. Purple is obviously to not offend anybody with the scheme on that card. Kadabra, he is the middle form of Abra and Alakazam that we were talking about earlier. Another very strong Pokemon in the game. We have Kakuna. And again, while these cards may not seem very exciting, in perfect condition, a lot of these cards can still go for upwards of $200 at this point. Machoke, who evolved into Machamp that we looked at a little bit earlier on that first edition Machamp. Magikarp. Magmar, the Fire Duck. Nidorino. Poliwhirl. Porygon. Now, I was a big fan of Porygon, and I think it was just because he's so much more unique than a lot of the other Pokemon that are out there. But that's not always a good thing, and in general, I don't think he's an extremely popular Pokemon. But he's always had a soft spot in my heart as far as the hobby goes. Raticate. Seal. And then last, but certainly not least on the uncommons, is Wartortle. This particular guy here looks good centering wise. Surface looks good. Edges, a little bit of whitening on this edge up here. A little white in the corners. Overall, very nice looking Wartortle though. Similar to the other ones there, he gets upwards of $550 in gem mint condition. Now we've got the commons. Similarly to the uncommons, there's really just a few that stand out here, so I'll kind of go through them quickly. You've got Abra, who we've talked about a couple times already. Bulbasaur, now here, again, being a starter Pokemon, very popular, and again, worth more than some of the rares in the set. This particular one has a error on it, the length instead of length and height on it. It's a fairly common error for these individual cards, but an error nonetheless, which kind of separates its value from some of the other ones. Very good centering condition on the back. Strong little white speck there on that corner, maybe a little bit on that corner there. Now these Bulbasaurs, again, the common starters are actually more popular than the uncommon ones, so those can go upwards of $700 to $800 depending on their condition. So, Caterpie. And then after Bulbasaur we have Charmander. So this is the base form of Charizard. And again, we got centering, looks good. Surface good. Back edges and corners. Now, this might be one of the best ones we looked at yet. Maybe just a hair of white up there. Very good looking Charmander. Charmander, a little bit less than the Bulbasaur and Gem Mint, around $600. Diglett, Doduo, Drowsy, half gold anteater, Ghost Pokemon Ghastly, Coughing, Machop, it's the base form of Machamp, Magnemite, that evolves into Magneton, Metapod, and Nidoran, and Onyx, and we've got Pidgey here. This is a big one coming up next. After Pidgey, you can probably guess, is Pikachu. This is a special Pikachu. This is the Red Cheeks Pikachu. So the printing of this was supposed to have yellow cheeks, but there were some of them that got out with red cheeks before it was fixed. So it was a very rare print. If you watched any of the openings recently, where they were opening it, they kept getting the yellow cheeks Pikachu, but they were looking for these guys here. Now, I was fortunate enough as a little kid to have picked up the Red Cheeks Pikachu. And as you can see, very good condition on this particular Pikachu. A little wear on that corner, it looks like maybe. Not much on it elsewhere. Now, these Red Cheek Pikachus in Gem Mint condition can go as high as $2,000 for a common in this set. We got our Poliwag, our Ponyta, our Rattata, Sandshrew. Here's our last of the starters, Mr. Bubbles himself, Squirtle. Centering looks good. Surface is good. Corners are good. And the Squirtles can go upwards of $800 for that little guy right there in Gem Mint condition. There's Starmie, all by Staryu. Misty's Pokemon, for those of you guys who didn't watch the original show. Tangela. Even less cool than Electrode is Voltorb. We have Weedle. And we've got Vulpix to finish off the Pokemon for the set. We also have the trainer cards. Now, obviously, the trainer cards don't have Pokemon on them, so they were a lot less valuable for a collector's standpoint, but they do still have some value to them. And again, just for nostalgia's sake, we'll run through them here real quick, just to kind of give you a blast of the past there. So we've got Super Energy Removal, Scoop Up. Now, these are all rares here that we're looking at. And again, most of them are not even as valuable as a lot of the commons and uncommons are. Pokemon Trader, Pokemon Breeder, Item Finder. Now, you might be asking, how do we know these are shadowless cards? Because there is no shadowed border on them any longer. De-Evolution Spray. And you have to look at the very bottom here and check out the dates on it. So the shadowless will have that 1999 Wizards on them. The Shadow, when they were reprinted, it was 2000, so you'll see the year 2000 down there on the bottom. Computer Search, Clefairy Doll, Imposter Professor Oak, Lass, Defender, Energy Retrieval, Full Heal. And again, even though these may not be super exciting, a lot of these still are worth a couple $100 in good condition. Maintenance. And a lot of them weren't traded very heavily, so they weren't taken out of the binders after they were put in a lot of times. So you can find a lot of these out there in really good condition. Plus Power. And there are a lot of individuals out there that are trying to build certain condition sets, and we'll still look for these in really high conditions. Pokemon Center, Pokemon Flute, Pokedex, my personal favorite card, Professor Oaks, very broken. Discard your hand and draw 7 more cards. If you have no cards in your hand, just draw 7 cards. Revive, Super Potion, got Bill. Oh, sorry, knocked the camera there a little bit. Energy Removal, Gust of Wind, Potion, Switch, the double colorless energy, and again, even the energy in gem mint condition, fighting energy from these base sets are $75 to $100. Fire energy, leaf energy, lightning energy, psychic energy, and the last is your water energy. Now in that binder, or that case, actually had a few bonus cards that were in the back of it that were outside of this set. Some interesting finds here. We've got a pre-release Clefable. Now these are exceptionally hard to find in a perfect score. I don't believe there are any recorded ones. I don't know if they were just kept in the pockets of the event organizers until they were handed out and that just got them all scuffed up. But as you can see, even though I'm quite sure I never played with this card, there is some clouding on the foil. It almost looks like rain on the card in the foiling, but it's just very fine surface scratches that are on there. The centering top to bottom is a bit off. Back edge has got some wear on that edge, and again, like I said, I am sure that this card has lived in the same sleeves as these other ones have, so this is kind of the condition it came to me at the pre-release most likely. White, quite a bit of white on that corner, quite a bit of white on that corner, and a little bit of a white speck in that bottom corner here. If you can find one in good condition, there's not a ton of them that are finishing out there. You can go for $1,600 on those in particular cards. Next one, there are 2 pre-release first edition Aerodactyls. Now these are fairly common. The game was getting pretty popular by this point in time, so there were lots of these that were given out. Population on these cards is fairly high, even in gem mint condition for a card this old. In a 9, these cards are going for about $300 a pop. And there have not been a ton of ones that have finished or sold in that perfect 10 in quite some time. But I don't. Centering's off. Looks like just a hair on that one. Corners are a little there, so. But again, if you have a perfect condition one on those, it's hard to determine the value, and there hasn't been any current sales on those particular ones here. Here is another fan favorite. We have the first edition Jungle Pikachu with the Wizard stamp out here. I don't recall where this was given out exactly. I know Wizards of the Coast had a couple promotionals, cards that were given out with specific magazines, subscriptions, and stuff like that. Picked one up over the ages. This particular Pikachu, though, in high condition here, which looks to be pretty good, is worth about $1,200 though. So if you see these laying out and about, like that Wizard stamp, will kind of jump out at you. So definitely a high value card there as well. Here and up next, we've got a bunch of these guys, the movie promo Muse. Now these were printed in foil and non-foil, as you can see, or hollow and non-hollow rather. These are all in the non-hollows. Which the other one is worth a little bit more, but even these in high condition are worth about $100 a pop. So definitely worth looking at condition-wise to see what kind of grades you have on those particular cards. And then we've got, after that, we have what is known as the Ivy Pikachu. Now there I think were 2 prints of this particular one. This is the #1 Black Star promo. These particular cards in good condition, it can go anywhere around $400 to $500 depending on the shape they're in. The edges on most of these have just a little bit of whitening on them, so they wouldn't be perfect condition cards, but even still at a higher grade, still worth a considerable amount there. Well, that brings us to the end of the video. We're going to send these cards out for grading in a future video. We're going to look at the grades more in detail and see what we think those exact grades may be before sending them out, and then compare those to the grades when they come back to us so we can get an exact value for it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you like and subscribe for future content. I'll see you next time.